Hi, this is Maggie from Tailspin Petworks, and this is What's Up Dog, Training and Behavior Basics. For pet people, the Go to Mat. Please pause on the first two slides to read them fully before heading forward. So why go to mat? Or place, whatever it is you want to call it. It's a multi-use behavior. You can use it for relaxation and off switch, a replacement behavior, a safe place for stressful situations for dogs who are reactive or anxious. Use it for leave at work, counter surfing, begging at the table, hanging out, all sorts of good things. What do you need? A flat, non-slip bed. Flat and non-slip are important. You can even use a piece of yoga mat. It just has to be a target, but it needs to be flat for the cookies to be seen, and it needs to be non-slip so your dog doesn't slide all over the place. Then you need your dog, and you need a bowl or pouch full of tiny treats because you're going to be using a lot of them. Step 1 is to magnetize your dog to the mat. Sit on the floor or chair and put the mat directly in front of your feet. Spend a short time just placing treats on the mat for your dog to get. They don't have to do anything but eat the food. Then you're going to toss a treat over the mat and a little bit away so the dog moves and then comes back towards you. As they come towards you, you're going to mark as soon as 1 foot or 2 feet hit that bed. And then you're going to put the food on the bed again. The best way to get it to the point where they put all 4 feet on is to make sure when you place your food on the mat, you place it as close to you as possible so the dog comes all the way across the bed. Once you start having that happen, pretty much every time, 4 feet, you can move to your next step. You're going to add the down. So you're going to toss a treat as before to reset the dog. When your dog stands on the bed, you're going to cue it down, whether that is a verbal or with your hand signal, it doesn't really matter. When your dog lies down, you're going to mark and reward putting the cookie on the mat as before. Do 3 or 4 repetitions using the down cue. But then the next one, you're not going to give the cue. They're going to come back, stand on the mat, and look at you. And you're not going to do anything. You're just going to wait. And this is the hardest part. You're going to wait, and they're going to stare at you like, what is happening? And hopefully, if you've done enough repetitions, they'll kind of go, I think I'm supposed to lie down. And then they lie down and you reward it. And you do that a bunch more times where you don't use the cue. If your dog struggles with this, it means you have to go back to the previous step and do it a few more times and then try again. What we want is it to be all one behavior. When you do eventually add a cue, go to mat is going to mean go to the bed and lie down. Step 3, adding the mat cue. You're going to toss another treat as before to reset when your dog is heading towards the mat. Now, we're 99% sure the dog knows what they're doing, right? You're going to say, go to your mat, or whatever it is you want to call it. We're not going to say it sharply or loudly. We're going to just label the behavior because we don't want to distract the dog from doing the thing they're supposed to be doing. When your dog lies down, you're going to mark and reward, putting the cookie on the mat as before. I know that's a lot of repetition there, but people keep forgetting and feeding the dog. So that's why I keep saying that. You're going to repeat 5 or more times before moving on to the next step. Step 4 is adding a release cue. So we're going to imply that when you send them to their mat with a cue, that it's going to mean you stay there until I release you. You're going to start with your dog in the down on the bed, as before. You're going to say your release word, and then you're going to toss a treat away. Or if you're standing, you can move to get the dog to move. Now, the important part is you say the word, and then there's a slight pause, and then you toss the treat or move. Because we don't want the dog moving on you moving. We want the dog moving when you say your cue, which would be free or break or something similar. Gradually increase the time before you release the dog. Once it is obvious they're waiting for the release, you can move to the next step. This is making things harder. The 3 Ds: distraction, duration, and distance. Oh my goodness, my brain went a little hoof there. Cue, go to mat, treat on the mat, release to reset. Same idea. Using small increments, you're going to add distance by moving the bed a little bit or you moving away from the bed a little bit. What we're trying to do now is teach the dog that it is not about where you are, it is where the mat is. You're going to have your dog stay on the bed a short time and then release. Now, again, you can use a stay cue or not. I don't really care. My preference is that you don't, because it should be implied, but that's up to you. Then add distance and time as you practice, making sure to release before your pup tries to leave on their own in case they're there too long, and use push drop stick before increasing any of the difficulties. Then you're going to add in some distractions. This is where it's going to get really hard for your dog. This can mean a person entering the room, a knock on the door, you dancing or making silly movements. You're going to gradually increase the difficulty. Now let's talk about relaxing on the mat. Because ideally, when you send your dog to the mat or they choose to go to the mat on their own, they will settle. If your pup has difficulty settling in general, starts barking or looks really alert when you're working on this behavior, you're going to switch the environment or time of day, take them for a sniff walk, give them a stuffed food toy, something that will help them come down from whatever level of arousal they're at. We're going to go back to rewarding on the mat with very low value treats. So instead of maybe high value ones that you used in the previous training sessions, this is about making things less exciting. So we want less exciting food. It's still food. They're still happy to eat it, but it's not going to make them, yell and scream for it. You're going to start putting those low value treats continuously for every 2 or 3 seconds for a little bit until you start to see that level of arousal and attention drop. Then you're going to go back and you're going to start looking for physical signs of settling. So what this means is if you see their head go down, or you see them blink or sigh or shift onto one side, anything that looks like they're going to relax into the mat. And then when you have that, where you can send them to the bed and they just kind of go floop onto the bed and are relaxed, you can take it on the road. And this means take it to your front porch, take it to the car, take it to the vet waiting room or a park next to a bench, somewhere not too busy, but busy enough. The idea is to teach your dog to settle in areas where they might have difficulty settling normally. This is especially valuable for dogs who worry or who have reactivity. Then there's using the mat as an off switch. So if you have a high energy working line type of dog, you know that your dog needs an off switch and that they don't have one naturally. A lot of pet dogs also don't have that, but it's more often in the working line breeds. We're going to use the mat as a turn it off. We've already taught them how to relax. Now we're going to start building a little bit of arousal back in. Start by sending them to their mat for a few repetitions as a warm-up, same as usual. Release them and then play with your dog very briefly and not too excitedly, and then cue to go to the mat. Be sure to send your pup before they get too overexcited. So we're gradually going to increase that level of excitement. Gradually increase the duration of the play and the mat time, and then start varying the times on the mat and in play. So the idea here is to gradually build. I can get aroused and get excited, and then I can turn it off. This helps teach your dog to control their levels of excitement and to go to their mat to calm down. So if they start to feel over aroused, they might choose to go to their mat. Then environmental cues. This is the one I really like, and I use this a lot in my training. These are signals to the dog to do a behavior that come from the environment, not from us. But we do have to teach them. So what we can do is add a doorbell or a knock on the door as a cue. This is a really common problem. Someone knocks on the door, the dog loses their mind. So what we want to do is not have the person come in to start, but they knock on the door and we say, go to your mat. And then we reward them on their mat. And we do that a bunch of times. So similar to before where we used to say down or whatever, this time we're just going to let the door knock happen and the dog will think about it. And then they'll go to their mat and you reward it. So we're turning the knock on the door or the doorbell into a cue to go to their mat. Again, you want to use push drop stick, and then you want to use distance distractions, etc., which means somebody might actually open the door versus just doing the knock, that sort of thing. Another way to do it is if you have a dog who begs and you like to sit at the coffee table and watch TV with your food and you don't want the dog right in your food, you can set the plates. So you would just do the plates without food, bring them in, sit them on the table, send the dog to the mat. Do that a bunch of times, then gradually add food. And eventually, what will happen is you can bring your plate with all your goodies, your nachos or whatever, in from the kitchen, sit them on the table, and your dog will automatically go lay on their mat. You should still reward them with some nachos if you can. I'm just saying. Passive training. This is the best part. This is the lazy training that we can do. You sit the mat next to your computer table or next to your couch, and you just basically drop treats on it every once in a while. Your dog learns to just hang out on the mat with you. It's very nice, especially for young dogs who have trouble settling. Happy training!